Good evening, everyone watching on YouTube and on Facebook. It is your girl, Suzette Speaks, TV host and attorney, and I'm asking the biggest question of the day to all of my viewers, known as speakers. And that question is $10,000 enough? The Joe Biden administration has announced recently that they plan on implementing a loan forgiveness scheme, if you want to say policy. The application is not yet out, but it has created a lot of buzz. If you have been paying attention, you may have seen headlines that said that $20,000, up to $20,000, is now available for possible forgiveness. 20,000 for Pell Grant recipients, and up to 10,000 for people who make less than 125,000 a year. But my question is this enough money for the average borrower? And is it in fact fair to forgive student loans? There is a survey up on my community page. Check it out and please let me know what you think, because there is a variety of opinion when it comes to student loan debt. I think it evokes a lot of different emotions. Some people are very excited. Some people are saying, yo, Mr. Biden, this is not enough money for us. Others are saying it's about time. Some people are actually saying thank you. But I want to know where you stand. But first and foremost, please drop a comment. Let me know where you're watching from. As I said, I'm a host from Miami. I like to cover interesting current events, social media stories that show how we can improve our lives from the inside out. I'm very thoughtful and deep, and I try to be introspective. But tonight, I'm talking about finance. I'm talking about money. We've done shows here on the Suzette Speaks channel about money before, but tonight, I am actually really excited in a way for some of this possibility. Are you? Are you excited about the 10 G's? Is it fair to those who've already paid off their student loan debt? Yes, there are people like that. I was out eating with my friend. Hit the like button as you come in. I was out eating brunch with a friend on Sunday, and we were discussing it. And he said he had already paid off his debt, so it wouldn't help him. So, what about those people who've already worked at paying down or even paying off their debt? Is it fair to them? Or should now maybe they receive some other type of incentive from the government? People have also suggested maybe they get some kind of loan towards buying a house or incentive that way. Well, we'll have a lot to talk about. But first, before we get started, I want you to hit the like button, please, and let me know where you're watching from. I see some comments already. Thank you so much. TT says, no, it's not. It's not fair. It should be. It's not enough, I guess. At least 20,000, if not a certain percentage of one person's balance. So you are thinking, TT, it should be based on a personal amount of debt owed. They could also give more years of forbearance. Very good point. That could be incentivized by the needs of the government. Well, there are those of you, thank you, TT, for your comment already. Early drop like, why don't you? And also, if you're brand new to the channel, I want to welcome you. There's so much I want to say about this topic. I'm going to bring up some discussion that has been made online, because not only did Joe, shout out to Joe, the man of the hour, shout out to Joe for keeping a promise. A lot of people said, this was the one thing they voted for, and it seemed like it was never going to come. Although I must say, if you are judging by his effectiveness as a legislator, Joe Biden has been very good at passing major legislation. Let's just give flowers where flowers are due. Whether you agree with the policy or not, I will have to just say the man is very skillful at putting forward legislation and getting it passed. What I'd like to say about this, and I kind of will get into my own story when it comes to loans and loan forgiveness, is that there are many people who feel like we as a country, the United States, and for those watching around the world, welcome, that we have enough money to give billions to places like, say, Ukraine, who is in this unfortunate, I say foreseen now, but unforeseeable war that's been going on for almost past 6 months now. We find billions of dollars for things that we want to find money for. And we also have found money for the PPP bailout. Yes, we have. And we're going to talk about the White House firing shots back to members of Congress who are speaking up against the student loan forgiveness plan, but who they themselves received PPP loan forgiveness. Let's talk about it. So is that hypocritical? Are we in a state of mind where it's okay to forgive the debts of the haves, but not to forgive the debts of the have-nots. The argument has been made online, y'all. I'm asking you, and I would love to see your opinions in the chat. Please write where you are watching from. All right, so let's talk a little bit about what exactly has happened, how much has been canceled. As of today, no application is available. I want you guys to hit the like button as you come in, and I'm glad you're watching. So, what happened? So, you have this movement that's been around for a while from the 2020 election. It was making headlines where people thought, hey, it's about time that we forgive some student loan debt, that people cannot get ahead in their lives. And my cousins talk about this who live in other countries. They always tell me, Sue, the US system gets you guys saddled with debt so you guys can't do anything with your lives. They really believe this. They're like, the US government has designed it. I'm not saying I agree. So that everyone needs a loan to go to college, right? Most people, I'm going to say everyone. There are people that can pay college cash. But the majority, especially of middle class Americans, have to take out some degree of loans so that they can afford the tuition and the housing and the books and all the rest of the things that go along with buying a college education. So, one of the things I think my cousins who live abroad have reasoned with me is that, Sue, by the time you finish your education, you'll usually get at least a two-year education, if not four, and then go on. Oftentimes, many folks do to get masters or some kind of PhD, JD, like myself. And then by the time you finish, you have been saddled with a ton of debt. Not only are you staring down the debt, now you are getting into a job market that doesn't pay you what you should be paid. Oftentimes, and we're talking about in years gone by, because right now they say people are looking for folks to work and they don't want to work. But I would love to hear your opinion on that. Are there a bunch of jobs available and the people that want to work? Or are they still hesitant to pay an employee what they're worth or what the employee thinks they're worth? So, as we were talking about it, he's always telling me, Sue, by the time y'all finish with all the debt, you're in tens of thousands of IOU, you're underwater, and then you're supposed to start your life. You're going to look to buy a house eventually. You're going to look to own a vehicle eventually. You're going to look to have kids eventually, but you can't afford it because the number one priority oftentimes is paying back the US government if you have a federal loan or a private company if you have a private loan. So there's a cycle that goes on with many folks enjoying, or some would say feeling burdened by the joys of getting a higher education, but also realizing that this higher education is going to keep them in a, you know, debt to revenue ratio that almost makes it impossible for them to make the moves that they want if they're paying their loan back. And it also bears mentioning that loans cannot be removed by bankruptcy. That's one thing. The federal bankruptcy rules, as they stand right now, and this is not legal advice, just as a matter of fact, they don't go away if you claim bankruptcy. Those things survive. And go ahead and check it with your local attorney wherever you live. Just giving a fact, not meant for legal advice. But it's very interesting sometimes to think about how much of our lives is spent working to pay back debt, working to clear our name, working to get your credit up because loans affect your credit as well. So you have all this debt on your credit report. You have this money that's taken out for some people out of your account, depending if you're delinquent or not. Or if you default on it, is even worse. Now you have a record of not paying back the US government or the private company. And that also affects your personal credit rating, your credit report, and how worthy you are of being lent money again. So there's a whole bunch of life implications. And I wanted to throw up my disclaimer. I can't find it right now, but make sure you guys know that nothing here is to be taken as legal advice. Make sure you speak with an attorney specifically to your issues if you have one. Today's show is just for informational and entertainment purposes only. Discretion is advised. So as I was saying, I'm curious to see if you guys are really overtly excited by the 10 grand. And if I could, let me just give you a quick rundown as to what happened. I'm gonna throw it up on the screen so you guys, if you're late and if you didn't know this even happened, this is what took place, y'all. It says the Biden plan will forgive, this is according to the New York Post, 10,000 of student loan debt for any single borrower making $125,000 or less, or any married couple making under $250,000 combined. Borrowers who received a federal Pell Grant, those are for usually very, very economically challenged folks, right? If you got a Pell Grant, right? Mostly brown and black people, but also people who are being challenged by, the affordability and basically not having a lot of financial resources, right? So those borrowers who receive that type of grant, Pell Grant, meant for low income borrowers, could see up to 20,000 in forgiveness. Interesting, right? So the White House estimates some 43 million borrowers will benefit from the reduction. Are you guys excited about it? Is it something that you are cheering on? President Biden, he did a great job. Mr. Biden kept his promise. Are you feeling like he fell short? He only gave 10,000? Or are you in the camp that's like, no, you guys took out the loans, you took out the responsibility. It's your responsibility to pay it back. Why should taxpayers bail you out? Are we setting a bad precedence by having taxpayer money bail out individual debt, individual choices to borrow? Well, there's been some counter points made. There's a link to that article in the New York Times. I'm reading the chat, guys. Thank you so much for being busy in the chat. Welcome, one and all. We're talking whether or not you think the new student loan debt forgiveness plan proposed by President Biden on their website. It says President Biden, Vice President Kamala Harris, as well as the United States Department of Education, has proposed to, first and foremost, the first half of that bill. The proposal is that the pandemic relief of putting loans on hold is about to be over. That's the first part. They kind of leave that out in some of the top stories. The biggest part that made the headlines is whether or not you qualify, whether you make under 125,000 and combined as a couple, married couple, under 250,000, so that you can get 10,000 if you are a regular student loan recipient, as well as up to 20,000 if you were a Pell Grant. So the White House has made a big deal out of this, y'all. He's felt like, yeah, this was my moment. This was an issue. I mean, there's other big legislation that has recently been passed, but this one made, a little bit of a splash. Everyday people heard about it. Everyday people noticed it. It made a lot of the social media rounds, and folks felt like, wow, has he done something for everyday people, the little guy and little gal? Has he finally paid attention to what is, going on, especially when it comes to inflation, how much more money things have cost the average person? Of course, we don't need to talk about gas and milk and eggs and everything else. Every time I go to the supermarket, I'm paying way more money for everything else, that I used to buy. When I look at my checkbook, I'm like, Lord Jesus, where did it go wrong? And I'm honestly trying to cut back on eating out 100%. I think about, not as much, but I do think about how long I'm going to be driving and where I'm driving to. And if I could make a better carpool decision if we're going out, 100%. My lifestyle has changed because I've thought about it, how expensive gas is, how expensive food is. And it affects travel. It affects your personal plans in terms of what you want to do with your life. Purchasing a car is so expensive right now. So there's so many parts of life that have been affected by inflation and the economic woes caused by the pandemic. So now we get some debt relief. Are you excited? Are you ecstatic? Do you feel like this is going to make a difference so that you're not paying back your loan come January at the high amount or at a higher amount than you would pay now with this forgiveness? And again, there's not a single-mindedness with this. There are some people that are super offended, super anti, very, very opposed to this type of loan forgiveness. And I'm going to mention a few of the Congress people now. I'm going to bring up some of the tweets, and then the White House clapping back, showing the hypocrisy, so they say, that there are so many people who got bailed out. Banks, I can name. We're going to talk about a couple of these tweets. There's so many people that got bailed out, but now it's unfair. Now that it's going to affect almost 43 million people. Well, let's see what you guys got to say. Let me read some of the chat. Hello, tell me where you're watching from. This is the Suzette Speaks Show talking about the Joe Biden administration rolling out their debt forgiveness and whether you think it's sufficient, whether you think it's fair, whether you think it could be much more. And I'm also going to drop the link and invite anybody who wants to come up and talk about how this plan either is going to work or may not, or is actually unfair to those of you who say, I got to figure out how to pay back mine. Why all of a sudden, you can join the conversation. Why all of a sudden everybody's going to get money off? What about me? And on top of it, certain states have now said or have the tax framework that you'll be taxed for the loan forgiveness. It will be seen as income on the state tax level. Y'all got to look up, I think it's about 11 states that if you do qualify and you do receive the forgiveness, it's going to be very interesting that you will get taxed. So you're going to end up paying money to the state as if it were income. It's very interesting about that. Certain states are haters and want money on those things. Let me go ahead and read the chat. Hello, Lando. Nice to see you. We're talking Joe Biden. We're talking Uncle Joe coming through to see where and how the people are in the street. Some of them are saying thank you. Some of them are ecstatic. Others, especially our Republican brothers and sisters, and even some Democrats are bashing it, are saying, nah, this ain't it, Joe. I think it took them a long time. The White House took their pretty long time there to figure out what would work, what would seem fair, what would most Americans agree to. And they came up with this $10,000 number, 20,000 for Pell Grants. And it's also been very controversial, even on the Democratic side. So we're not going to paint this with one brush. I think this next tweet I'm going to bring up kind of gives an indication with what some people are saying about why y'all mad for those who oppose it. But before I get to that, hey, Great Pill is in the building. Jeremy is in the building. Nice to see you. Jeremy says, this is what happens when financial literacy isn't taught in schools. Okay, let's explain. I know people with 80,000 to 100,000 in debt with a bachelor's degree, and now you have what you want, the taxpayers to pay for the debt. And now you have what you want, the taxpayers to pay for that. No, thanks. I hear you. Okay. Oh, you corrected it. Thank you. Thank you so much, Jeremy. Appreciate your thoughts. Maya, nice to see you, says, in the Caribbean, we have to pay for even high school. True story. There were no loans. You either pay or you go to a secondary, a la some people would say second tier, second class. Even some people would say that's school. You don't get to go to a top high school if you don't have the cash. Ain't no loans for even high school. Thank you for that point, Maya. Shout out to DL. I see you in the back. Nice to see you, brother. I'm going to bring you up in just a second. DL says, what's good? Nice to have you, sir. Jeremy asks, what does that say to the people who went to college and were responsible enough to pay their student loans back completely? That argument came up while I was at brunch Sunday. And I was like, y'all excited? And my homeboy was like, oh, I paid off mine. I was like, okay. I haven't. I'll be taking my 10 G's. Thank you. Whatever. Because I feel like the next administration we get might reverse it. So I'm going to go ahead and take whatever little time window they offer this, because you know laws can change, legislation can be voted on and change the framework. Maya says, imagine not going to college because you can't afford it and didn't want to go into student loan debt. Now you are paying student loans anyway. Exactly. There's no magic bullet to how to avoid the student loan, some would say, trap. There's oftentimes, yes, I know people that work there with the college. I only worked my senior year. But yeah, most people are going to have to take on some debt to get a higher education. This is how the system is set up. But oftentimes the complaint is that you do not find jobs comparatively that give you the type of income that allows you to A, live, and B, pay back the debt. So there's a whole school of thought that says that this is really trap, again, is the wrong, maybe too strong of a word, but the system is set up against those who are trying to better themselves, and that you end up in a deeper hole than when you started, even though you're quote unquote educated. It's a kind of cycle that people feel that sometimes it exists. DL says, I paid off my loan. Somebody owes me 20K. Let's go. We'll hear his argument shortly. Ogundele, nice to meet you, says, we give money to other countries all, but there's always complaints when something is done for our own country. That's what I'm hearing online. A lot of people have that sentiment, Ogundele. Thank you so much. Mildred says, and the eggs are always so tiny. Okay, we talk about the gift. It's only 10,000. Thanks, I think, Joe. Why couldn't it have been 50? A lot of people were saying 50 was the magic number. Some would say that's too high. Others say 50,000 would ruin the economy. Let's get into it. 25,000, others have said, not a fan. DL says, okay, tell us how you feel. The Great Pill says, meal prepping and cooking at home saves a hello. Joining the club. I got some salmon right now in the fridge. I'm ready to go cook up for the rest of the week. Because I realized, again, why am I going to spend so much money when, again, things have gone up such a significant amount that it makes it more difficult or leaves you less discretionary income to do what you want to do. I hear you. He says, walking more, but I wish I could walk. It's too far. South Florida, you need a car. Miami is almost impossible. Yes, needed to save up on gas. Trust me, I'll be on the car. Oh, I had a friend girl visit in town this past weekend, and she was over 45 minutes from me. I thought she was going to be staying closer. She's like, oh, yay, I'm coming to town. I'm ready to come take you out. I'm ready to hang out. And I'm like, where are you? And when I looked at it, I was like, she's over 45 minutes away. That's not up the street. And I felt so bad. It's not like a close friend. She's actually a friend of a friend that became friends, if that makes sense. But I said, oh, okay, do you have a car? That was like my next question, even though she was from out of the country. Or I wanted to say, can you borrow somebody's car and come meet me halfway? Or let's go, I'll take you out. But to drive 45 minutes to you, drive 45 minutes back down to Miami, to drive 45 minutes to drop you off, to drive 45 minutes. What are we doing? What are we doing? That's $30, not maybe more of gas and a lot of time. And so we ended up going on I couldn't even find a place on her side of town. I did. Actually, it was really good. Raw sushi, RA sushi was really great, but we had to stay over there. Like, we can't come all the way back to Miami and come chill because it's a gas thing now. If I'm by myself, let me know. If you know what I'm talking about, drop a comment. But we live in the real world. TARP was wrong. DL will explain his point momentarily. The bank should listen. The giant bailout. His 10,000 for your votes. It's Doug. Doug, he not buying the votes, is he? Doug says, here goes 10 G's. You're saying that Mr. Biden is somehow giving the people what they want as a form of quid pro quo. I don't know. Thank you, Doug. No. Jeremy, I can't even read this. Thank you for your thoughts. Good evening to you. Okay. Before I forget, also, I have a good show coming up on Saturday. Y'all come check me out. Her name is Miss Exo Natalie. She's also a YouTuber, and we're going to talk. DL, this might be your show. It says, men don't like makeup. Let's talk about it. That's Saturday's show. Men don't like makeup. Let's talk about it. Y'all ready? Exo Natalie's coming up. I have some great new collabs coming up in the month of September. Some brand new folks outside of my circle. I wanted to network a little bit more with other YouTubers, and she's my first. She'll be on this Saturday around 12 noon. Make sure you hit the subscribe and the notification bell so you know when I'm live. All right, back to tonight. Let me see what else Doug has to say. It's fair if people that paid off their loans get 10. That's what I think. They should get it towards either housing or some other government program. I agree with that. Maya adds, I know for a fact a lot of student loans did not go towards school. It went to Gucci. Lucci. Louis, etc. A lot of that. Don't tell it all. Maya. Don't hurt the feelings, Maya. Let's go. Salute, Titanium. Good to have you. Again, we're talking about the Biden student loan forgiveness plan. 20,000 for Pell Grant recipients up to, let's say that, and up to 10,000 for, as it said in the New York Post, you can Google it, borrowers who make less than 125,000 or a couple married, 250,000 or less, 10,000 each. So I wanted to get to this wonderful tweet. Shout out to Jax Persist. Can I throw it up real quick? Saying here, let me remove the banner, says, I don't own a farm, but I paid to bail them out. I never used AIG, Citigroup, or Bear Stearns, but I paid to bail them out. I didn't own a house during the Great Recession in 2008, but I paid to bail out, okay, talk the truth, Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac. So there's precedent here, says Jax persists, where even though it's not directly affecting you, in order to have, I guess, depending on whether you believe the outcome is a valid one, that American taxpayers have bailed out plenty of people. We're not even going to get to the PPP bailout, the forgiven $1 million, $800,000. Many members of Congress received. I'm going to get to it in a second. So if you agree with Jax persists, let me know in the chat. It's never about who needs it. It's the fact that it's needed, and that our elected officials look at the larger landscape and say, we can't, too big to fail. We can't allow our economy to lose this. Farms, Freddie and Fannie. You guys remember Freddie and Fannie? As well as the great TARP, all of those things. DL, how you doing? Let me bring you up now and join the conversation. Y'all hit the like button. Suzette Speaks, talking a little bit about Biden's student loan forgiveness plan. And DL Saint now joins me. DL, how are you?
I'm good. What's good? How you doing?
I am fantastic. I was reading all about this earlier today. It really piqued from my Sunday conversation, honestly, when I thought about how many people at the table were very excited and how many people were kind of disappointed. It was like, everybody's not happy with this. Some people might have different feelings, and I thought it would be good to talk about it. So I see your comments in the chat. First of all, introduce yourself, and then you can tell me what you feel about Biden's plan.
They know me. I'm an original speaker. Did I say it
right? Fantastic. He does a little something himself on YouTube.
I do, yeah. Like I shout out to Suzette, and matter of fact, to Suzette, she's amazing. So y'all know she's amazing. Sweet. Shout out to her. That's for her. That's for Suzette right there. She's amazing. I'm always bigging her up because she works hard, and she also takes time to help those who help themselves. She's helped me a lot. Like she said, I have my own podcast as the DL Saint, the DL Saint I Really Want to Know podcast, which we covered this. Right. I don't know if Miss AKA Lady is in the house, but wow. I don't know how. I think we went back 2 days debating this back and forth on Insta.
No way.
Oh, way. We had to do I had to do a show. Like,
what did you think? What do you think? Maybe your own personal opinion. And then what did you hear from the folks who watched the I Really Want to Know podcast?
Here's the thing. I get it. You know what I mean? And I got some notes here. I'm going to jump around on my notes. But like you were reading, like, the comment there, like I pay for this, I pay for that. I'm not a farmer. I pay for that. Pay for TARP. Pay for this. TARP was wrong. Those banks should have been allowed to fail, period. Mm-hmm. They weren't allowed to fail because they own the politicians. Let's keep it 100. Brother Doug was right. Here's $1,000. No, I'm sorry. Here's $10,000. Thanks for your vote. You know what I mean? He was absolutely right. This doesn't make any sense. I'm looking at the White House page, the whitehouse.gov, and I'm looking at this. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Up to $20,000 in debt relief cancellation for Pell grants, and $10,000 for non-Pell grants. But you have to earn less than $125,000 a year.
Yep.
$250,000 for married and household. This is absolutely designed to thank those people who got him into office. You know what I mean? Hey, Lord Tier, thank you. And he knows he's only in for one term. So he's like, I'm going to do it now. And the next president will absolutely turn this around once they come in there. But here's the thing, though. I get it, right? I had student loan debt. I paid mine back. I get it. So it was a trap. It was a famoose. We all fell for the okie doke. I'm just being 100 with it. There's no need to spend $200,000-$300,000 in the college education unless you go into an Ivy League school, and then you're not paying for the education. You're paying for the networking opportunities. Mm-hmm. There's nothing wrong with the city college. There's nothing wrong going to JUCO. There's nothing wrong with learning how to be a pipe fitter or a plumber or working in construction. There's nothing wrong with all that. But no, they told us, they programmed us, you got to go to college. You got to go to college. Who got all that bread? You know what I mean?
Man.
Fell for the okie doke. And here's the thing: I don't feel sorry for you. I fell for it too. I paid mine back. But nah, you shouldn't get. You signed those papers. And like one of your friends said, I messed with so many college girls when I was in the Army. They always had on the freshest gear, right? Where'd you get that money? Student loans. They didn't work.
Man, I use mine responsibly, but by the way, I'm just putting it out there. I know there's people when we got that net check. Oh boy, it was people running to the mall. Not everybody. People lived off of it. That was what it was intended for you to hold you through the rest of the semester, buy your food, buy other necessities. But yes, every type of system has those that misuse it, and you can't, necessarily control it. And you got to take what they say, the good with the bad. But I hear what you're saying, and I know that there's truth to it, that a lot of people didn't or weren't good stewards. Others were. But yeah,
and it wasn't just Pell loans too. It was every bank was giving you a credit card, so there was that money on top of it. So they were again, yeah. And people think, well, I was young, I was 18, I didn't know any better. Well, I was 18, they sent me to war. I don't want to hear that. You know what I mean? I signed the bottom line. So did you. Pay the money back. You know what I mean? Is it wrong? Yes. Is it wrong? You can't, I could go out as a grown man right now and go buy $5 million worth of property, mess it all up, and I could write all that off through bankruptcy. You can't get rid of your student loan debt. Is that wrong? Yeah.
No, you
can. That's wrong.
It dies with you for real. Doug, let me read a few of these comments. Doug got me laughing, says, those 87,000, they hired 87,000 new agents. God,
IRS.
mercy. From this year, and 80,000 new agents from last year are coming for those PPP loans, 100%. Those were our corporation. Is she saying those corporations should foot the bill for the student loans, not the struggling taxpayers? Maya says, make a distinction. Go back and get from who we already lent money or who we already bailed out from utter collapse and an implosion. Doug says, I still have student loans and I'm not excited. Yeah, it would be nice, but I think about the people that already paid off their loans. Yeah, he's agreeing with DL. Jeremy
Shout
says,
out to
in
Brother
the words of Kevin Samuels, life is about choices and trade-offs. People should have thought about their decision before borrowing that kind of money. Now, I am agreeing to a certain extent because I feel like something that DL said is very true. That the pushing of, or I don't even call it conditioning, I think especially in our communities of color, Black communities, education has always been or seen as the great equalizer. It's just gotten way more expensive. So
it still is the equalizer, but it is more expensive. When people, like, the biggest thing is people say, well, they lied to me. I went to college and I got all this debt. They didn't lie to you. They told you the truth. You still make more money than the person
over your lifetime, 100%.
Yeah, over your lifetime than the person who didn't go to college. You still earn more. You're still in a better position. You just took too much money. You went to the wrong school. You're right, man, and you chose the wrong major. There are all sorts of things, like going back to the military thing. We both signed the bottom line. You know what I mean? When I got into the Army and I got to Fort Bragg, and they're like, you and those 8 other people are going to Desert Storm, and the other 150 people are going to stay here in North Carolina. I want to be like, hey, wait a minute. I didn't sign up for this. Yes, I did. And now it's time to pay. And I get it. You're stuck in this trap. The interest. I mean, I look at the studies. I look at the stats. These people who got law degrees, like you, not you, but like people who got these law degrees, a lot of money, and they're like, they've been paying on it, and it's just like they owe more now than they did when they graduated college.
Because they stopped the payments during the pandemic, but the interest is still accruing, which I'm like, what sense does that make? Can we also make that a part of it? 100%.
But here's the thing. You went to college. You mean to tell me they didn't teach you about compound interest? That's the thing, isn't it? It's not like you know how to read, right?
They do. But financial literacy, I agree with Jeremy, is not commonly taught. I know in Florida, they just actually passed a law. My cousin is a senior in high school, and she's taking I think it's called Financial Lit 101 as a honors class. Now they're making them have to take all students in high school have to take at least one financial literacy course.
That should be mandatory.
In Florida, mandatory now. thinks,
But
who.
we're in Florida, ain't
But
got no teachers to teach it. We ain't got no teachers
I
down
know,
here. So
but the teacher's in heck of debt too. So I don't know how they go teach blind leading the blind at this point. Appreciate the support, y'all. Help out the channel. You see the cash out. Appreciate you guys watching. This is Suzette Speaks. And I'm talking about the Biden loan forgiveness plan. Got DL saying up. I'm gonna drop the link again. Anybody else want to come up and tell us how you really feel, or drop it in the chat? Is it fair? And DL is giving his opinion, saying that for all of the borrowers who did either try or have already pay back their money, what's the deal? That's not fair. They were responsible or found a way with their degree and their tenacity to figure it out. And or maybe on the front end they didn't make the decision to take out as much loans. I guess they might have started and stopped, or found a side job, or worked real hard in the first few years and got a couple jobs after graduation, and or join the military, quite frankly, to figure
yeah,
out how to pay back that debt. But for many people who are, for example, in highly technical and other, maybe even not so technical, because I think of my liberal arts majors, my brothers and sisters who took, English or acting or others that we sometimes don't equate with having steady income right away. It can be much more difficult when they're out there. That's what you see, a lot of people hustling with graduate degrees, working at, Walmart, Starbucks, and everywhere else. And there's no shade to them, none at all. But oftentimes they cannot, depending on where they live, the cost of living, they cannot afford to pay back, tens of thousands of dollars, some of them hundreds of thousands. And the majors they are in, as DL pointed out, might be a little bit more difficult, more competitive, or just not demand the salaries that allow you to live a certain lifestyle and be able to pay back your debt. So maybe the question should be, should colleges offer all of these? I think we need liberal arts majors and
no, we don't. You can
study.
go do that on your own. You should not be allowed to borrow all that money for liberal arts. No, it should be a cap then. But and I guess there's 2 points I wanted to make. Because here's the thing. You're talking about these people to get these degrees and they get out of college and they're like, well, I'm living in LA to chase my passion, but I can't afford LA. Well, get out of LA. It's the bottom line. I have no sympathy for you. And I never finished college. Note, I said I paid back my student loans, never finished college. And even if I had student loans, I make too much money. I wouldn't be able to use this program anyway. So what are we doing? What message are we sending? Right? I pulled myself up. But the one thing I wanted to touch on, instead of doing this for a very select few, people out here, instead of doing this, how about we do what Andrew Yang was talking about a couple cycles ago, and let's enact the freedom dividend, and we'll pay $1,000 a month to every American above 18 years old. Wouldn't that be better? Right? Every American. If you get $1,000 a month, couldn't you use that money to help to pay off your student loans? The answer is yes, but would they use the money to pay off their student loans?
Universal basic income. What
Universal basic income.
Andrew
Tate called it the freedom dividend, but it's
Okay.
it's UBI, it's universal basic income.
Okay.
Wouldn't that be better? How about we help all Americans, every American 18 and over who's a U.S. citizen would get $1,000 a month, right? Why are we doing this? I bet you get less pushback then. Now that deals, now everyone gets a little taste, not just the 1%, not just big corporate, not just big tech, not just farmers, not just educated folks, but everybody. Wouldn't that work? Wouldn't that work just well?
Very interesting take on it, DL. Let me read some of the chat and the feedback here. Yes, Doug say, I don't care what Biden does. That's still not enough to stop the red wave from coming in November. All right, Doug. TV Trucking, good to see you. What about the tax cuts for the rich? It's bailout by another name, maybe? That's payback. That's what he says. Thank you. Or TV Trucking, thank you. One of my friends in college flipped his student loans. He earned a scholarship and used his student loans to buy a property. Wise man.
Smart man.
Yeah, we're going to get into this, TBE Trucking. Thank you. What about the rich folks that got the PPP money for no reason and actually got it forgiven? We're going to talk about that because several of them are actually in Congress. So they're talking about Biden do this or do that on a Twitter account. And shout out to the White House Twitter feed. I had to take a few of those for tonight's show, and the clapback was real. Getting into the business of many of the members of Congress who received PPP and got it forgiven. Why should you get hundreds of thousands of dollars in PPP for free and forgiven, bailed out, and then you are talking about how terrible it is for the everyday person to get $10,000 off their student loans or debt forgiveness, up to $20,000 for Pell Grant recipients. Well, Doug says my alma mater goes up $2,000 per semester every year. Dang. Hey, the work from home wife Atlanta says, I had the choice of going to my dream school for 20,000 plus a year or going to my second choice for free. Well, it's great to be a Florida Gator. Choose wisely. I hear you, sis. TV said you expect an 18-year-old to understand money. Interesting point. The work from home wife Atlanta adds, I made the free college choice for a state school over a private liberal arts school that was going to be over 20,000 a year. So that's what DL is talking about. You have to choose wisely. It's not what you want. What makes fiscal sense for you in the long run, and not necessarily because I saw beautiful pictures of the school I really wanted was Emory. I loved the campus. I fell in love with that campus. Looking at the beautiful, I don't know, architecture. Something about their brochure got me, DL. I was like, well, I got to go to Emory. I was like, negative. No, we're not paying out of school. We're not doing this. And I mean, it was a lot of her. It was less me, but it was definitely her being like, no, that's not fiscally responsible or realistic for you at this moment. So many would say, not everybody has that type of intervention. Other people are on their own quite early and making these decisions. BY says, I remember when Wall Street crashed the economy, wiped out retirements, and got a 700, that's what he's talking about, $1 billion bailout. So yeah, this is fair. TBE Trucking adds, funny how white folks on Fox News crying about $10,000, but got tax cuts not paid for. His words, thank you very much. BY said, it's not a select few. It's literally millions of people. And why Andrew Yang was talking about is stupid. Okay. What? No, okay. Your opinion, BY. Said ads, my kid went to a private school, but y'all okay with my property taxes paying for someone else's kid to go to public school. Interesting. I call it living in a society. So no matter what, you can't get around taxes to pay for things that you don't necessarily use. That's I think what that quote I put up there said, that no matter what, you're going to have to pay for something that is not necessarily you. That you don't necessarily use, but of course, taxpayer money goes across the board to many people and many projects. So this one is an example of that. Again, I don't own a farm, but I pay them a bailout when the farmers need it. I never owned Citigroup, AIG, Bear Stearns, but I paid that huge $700 billion. I didn't own a house when Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac went under, but I paid it. Taxpayer money paid it. So let's look at some of these people that have been called out by the White House, DL. You know who this is a picture of?
Yeah, that's the crazy
Marjorie
Taylor Greene. Yes. Yeah, Marjorie Taylor Greene. That's like the opposite of AOC. Like those two are both like
she's
extremes.
On the polar opposite, exactly. And the White House, after she tweeted for our government just to say, okay, your debt is completely forgiven, it's completely unfair, White House promptly retweeted with the its own quote saying Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene had $183,504 in PPP loans. What? Forgiven.
So here's the thing, though. I mean, we see that, and that's like, wow, that grabs you.
Well, hold on, DL. Here we go. There's Moss. Congressman Vern Buchanan wrote, and I want to make it a little bit bigger, as a blue-collar kid who worked his way through college, I know firsthand the sacrifice people make to receive an education. Biden's reckless unilateral student loan giveaway is unfair to the 87% of Americans without student loan debt and those who play by the rules. But guess what? Congressman Vern Buchanan had over 3 million in PPP loans forgiven. Oh, yes. And there's more. Congressman Mark Kelly started a tweet asking plumbers and carpenters to pay off the loans of Wall Street advisors and lawyers. Sir, that's not who we're talking about. Isn't just unfair. It's bad policy. But guess how much Congressman Mike Kelly got forgiven for his PPP? $987,237. And I could go on. Matt Gaetz, Florida's own Matt Gaetz. Everyone knows that in a 60 billion plus European land war, it's always the last 3 billion that kicks in the back door. I'm sorry, I don't mean to laugh. But Mr. Matt Gaetz, who's under investigation for other things, I won't even go into that, got his 482,000. Forgive me. You see a pattern here, sir. So these are our lawmakers talking about what everyday people do not deserve. I'm just playing devil's advocate. And many of them have gotten the same taxpayer money for their own businesses through PPP bailout. What would you say about that, DL?
All politicians are bought and paid for. They grimy. They know what's coming. The difference between these people and these numbers that we're seeing and the people that they're going to go after and lock up taking these PPP loans, the politicians knew it were coming. They had all the corporations set up already, even though the corporations weren't really doing any business, but all the paperwork was done. They knew it was coming. They could plan it out. Why? Because they in D.C. and they write the rules. You know, us regular folk back home, you know, you run your little mom and pop or whatever, and you didn't do the paperwork right because you had no idea this was coming. And when it did hit, you only had this much time to get the paperwork right. And if you didn't hire someone to do it for you, you got a problem now. So yeah, are is this? Are you asking me if I think that our politicians are corrupt, or Republicans, Democrats, and Independents, and all these people in D.C.? They're corrupt. Come on now, we had that talk. They are just as they are corrupt. And these people went to D.C. and found a way to clean. You know, to clean their books, to balance their ledgers, and make money off of y'all. Again, it's the famoose.
Yeah.
You know, we can't. You expect these people to go to D.C. and you think they really have some sort of sense of honor and duty to people. If you know their names, they are bought and paid for, Republican or Democrat. Now, those elected officials that you don't know who they are, they go in and they do the people's work every day. I would be surprised if those people got involved in this PPP stuff. I would be surprised if you find $3 million sitting in their refrigerator in their office. I'd be really surprised. But if you know these people, they're bought and paid for it. Look at McConnell. You know what I mean? Look at who's the Speaker of the House?
Nancy Pelosi?
Look at Pelosi. Look at McConnell. Right? McConnell's been in D.C. since the 60s. That man was a staffer during the Vietnam War in D.C. and he's still there. You look at Nancy Pelosi. She went to D.C. regular. She wasn't making any money. She's worth over $100 million right now. So if y'all just want to talk about this is all smoke and mirrors. Y'all falling for the famoose. Again, y'all, you know, like I said, resist the slave mind, people. You know what I mean? Figure out a way that everybody can get a little taste. You know, if you look at what Andrew Tate was talking about with universal basic income, and people are like, oh, that's stupid. Okay, well, we're going to go the other way then. We're going to just start giving groups of people, 4 million people, 400 million Americans in this country, and we're talking about, what, 30 million that might get something? I don't even think it's that many. Right? So how does that make sense?
Yeah, they say 48, almost 48 million qualify, but of course everybody's not going to get it. But
everybody's not going to get it.
Some people don't know how to fill out the paperwork. Some people going to miss the deadline. So yeah, that's how much potentially could get it. 40. I think it was 43 million. Let me read a few comments. Thank you, DL. Doug says UBI, Universal Basic Income, one is coming once the large corporations are completely equipped with automation and artificial intelligence. After the companies lay off 90% of their employees, they will have to start UBI.
Look at yes. When you go into Publix or you go into the drugstore, what are they trying to get you to do? They want you to check yourself out.
Oh no, right? you can't find nobody in Walmart. I went to Walmart. I was like, this is why I don't come to Walmart. Like I'm going through a maze of aisles upon aisles. I was just looking. I think I was looking for something for like my dashboard. I was like, can I get some Armor All or whatever it is?
How many humans lost their job?
Wait, ma'am. First of all, it's in Miami. You know, to find someone who's speaking.
Yes. Yeah, first we gotta get past that. Hola, ¿cómo estás? You gotta get past that.
And I'm speaking half Spanglish. Shout out to all my Spanish speakers. Not a knock. It's not a diss. It's not just what it is. It's Miami. I'm like, señora, para el carro, el frente del carro. ¿Dónde está el? And I'm here doing my best. And I finally get to the aisle, but ain't nobody down there to help me. There's nobody down there to tell me.
See, if I'd have been with you, I'd have been waiting at that Hooters right there in the same parking lot. I know where you was. I know exactly which Walmart you was at.
I'm like, oh, okay. This is why I don't come here. But yeah, no, and then I had to check myself out. I finally picked one, didn't know which one to pick. Okay, pick this. This sounds good. And the price is right. And then I go and I check myself out. But it's like, oh, okay, contactless and even customer serviceless and employee-less. like is where the trends are definitely going.
But think
Mildred,
about it.
go ahead.
But you think about it real quick. You check yourself out. Amazon right now is using technology that can offload trucks, right? So now that technology is going to filter down to others. So now you don't even need somebody to
To take
stack the
down the
shelves.
stuff. Exactly. So imagine
So
when the drone delivery comes in.
and
Oh,
then the
it's
drone
a
delivery
wrap.
comes in.
It's not a wrap. Then go all my UPS men that make UPS guys. I've read in stories that they make like $40 an hour, $50 an hour. Is that true? Do you think
Yes,
UPS drivers?
UPS and FedEx, and they're unionized. So
Yes, they make
yeah,
money. They make
they make
money.
money, and
So
guess who's
imagine
they're
if they
going after
take
them
them out
first.
of the system. Yeah. Yeah. They're going for the people who make the biggest money. They hate the unions, first of all. And they're going to try to like take away those jobs. Like you see the articles about people who are, from the burger machines that make your burger and serve you, bring you up and get you out the line. It is definitely coming. Mildred Ratchet RN says, if any of my kids tell me and my husband that they want to be an art major, they're on their own. No, sir. No, ma'am. They can pay all they want, just not on my money. Don't be talking about you going to be a painter. I hear you. Rosalind, nice to see you. Rosalind Princeton in the house says, the hate or upset surrounding this really bothers me. For those who qualify as public service borrowers or income sensitive, this is a blessing. So people who are working for government agencies and they're not making, what the private sector would make. I'm thinking of my state attorneys, my public defenders, and I'm sure there's so many other jobs that qualify for this. Public service borrowers and income sensitive. This is a blessing. And some of us will still have, I'll put in there, sis, a large balance anyway. Hey, Rod Eric, nice to see you. Glad you are joining us here. Suzette Speaks with DL Saint, just talking a little politics in the way of in the wake of Joe Biden's announcement not too long ago that he is proposing a student loan debt forgiveness program. Again, you have to make less than 125,000 or less, or 250 for married people, so that you would qualify for, if you had a regular federal loan, 10,000 up to 10,000, and if you had a Pell Grant up to 20,000. Is it fair to those who've paid it off, people who didn't have it, those who again took on jobs and chose schools and made the sacrifices so that they wouldn't have the Pell Grant or the student loan? Or is it more of the same? Like we were seeing, and I can name several more Congress people tweeting, Mark Wayne Mullen, we don't need farmers and ranchers, small business owners, and teachers in Oklahoma paying the debts of Ivy League lawyers, okay, and doctors in the U.S. Congressman Mark Wayne Mullen had over 1.4 million in PPP loans forgiven. White House Twitter account is on fire, y'all. Go check it out. And there are several more. So it begs the question, is like bailout, what's good for the goose is not good for the gander. There's a saying. And it seems like the people at the top can get bailouts and the people at the bottom, oh no, once it applies to the middle class or the large swath of the population, it's no, 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 no. We only want banks. We only do farmers. We only do people who have, and because farmers are not poor, by the way. A lot of farming takes a lot of expensive equipment. You got to have some good amount of capital to get into farming, to set up your infrastructure and all that. This image, and I'm just throwing it in there, of the poor farmer that we often are fed is not, I'm thinking about the cattlemen and all these people. You got to have some bread. Right.
I mean, like Suzette, here's the thing. Like, and this, I love the back and forth. I love when, especially black folks talk about this, right? And it was, I think someone put in the chat, it was like right here by BY, 45 million people was a lot of people. It's almost equivalent to the black population in the U.S. Okay, still a drop in a bucket. And here's the thing. We're over here talking about all this. What I try to push is, why is it that black folks haven't come together to use our political capital of this to be effective for our neighborhood, right? And here's the thing: they got money for this. You're looking at all the money that was forgiven for these elected officials, and think about the thousands of other people out there who got big money, but we can't get reparations. We can't get something to govern. We can't put forward a
we
plan.
Can't get police reform.
We can't
voting protection. That's why I was like, is this a red herring, Mr. Biden? because you
Of
give
course,
one
it's
protection
smoke and
because it's going
mirrors.
to affect all races. The diverse cross section of the population can qualify for this. But I'm like, the major key issues that I think, especially Black folks want: police reform, voting rights protection. Some of these things have not been handled. So is this a finisher point? Sorry, as I think about what you're saying,
Yes,
like the red herring. But go ahead.
like with reparation. How hard would it be to come up with a plan that will put all descendants of slaves in a tax-free status? Imagine that. You're an American. I'm a descendant of slaves. I've seen my ancestors. I've seen them. My great great grandma. You know what I mean? Like, she born a slave. I was lucky enough. I was a little one, but I met her. Right? We're descendants from slaves. Could you imagine if we had a plan out there, a political plan, especially now with all this wokeness, that would say, hey, this is people like me, my descendants, maybe like me, maybe 4 generations, we get tax-free status. All the money I make, I keep. Could you imagine that? Could you imagine what that would do for America? And then those people who were victims of redlining, right? Could you imagine, which would be us as well and some others, maybe your family. I don't know what time they got over here to
Yeah, yeah.
America.
No, I'm gonna have to marry into the reparations deal. Thank you.
Well, okay. But if you hit
In
the
all
redlining
seriousness,
thing,
yes.
yeah. But if you hit the redlining thing, could you imagine if all, first of all, those Americans not paying taxes, like all the money they make, they keep, and secondly, they're guaranteed federal loans on homes, and they don't pay taxes on that. They don't pay any fees whatsoever. They just pay whatever the house costs. If a house $100,000, that's all they pay. They don't have to get a bank. It's guaranteed by the government, right? Wouldn't that be better for us as a community than us sitting around here fighting over 35 or 40 million people, most of whom aren't Black, most of whom aren't people who are in need, getting this money? The money is never going to go to the people who need it.
The dressing on it is the Pell Grants. The
Yes.
Pell Grants will help majority, minority, Black and brown people. That's the dressing on it. So they gave a
That's
little bit
the
more to the Pell Grant. I ain't get no Pell Grant, so I know that.
But the
And
thing is, that's the
again,
smoke and mirror, though. Like you
yeah,
said
people
yourself,
have
most
said
of us
that.
aren't going to be able to
Yes,
do it. We're going
yeah,
to mess up on the paperwork. We're going to miss
yeah,
the timelines. We're going to
yeah.
get booted out. But the other folks, they're not.
Oh,
They
they're
have the
gonna line up.
resources to help them.
They're gonna line up,
Just like the
100%.
politicians knew that the PPP loans were coming, so they can set up everything they needed to set up, so they could get tens of millions of dollars, and they knew it was going to get forgiven. Why? Because they write the rules. You right? I mean, so I ain't mad at them. Game peep game. Shit, I'm trying to get on their team.
You're like, tell me what I need to do. I'll be running for office. No, just kidding. Because I'm like, it must be something. It got to be something in that pot why everybody want to be in office and why everybody running so hard. Let me see what the comments are saying. BY adds, where are all these people that paid off their loans though? 1 in 10 Americans still own, that's it, loans after 20 years later. Some of these folks are lying. Is that the real stat? 1 in 10? Only 1 in 10 own?
We got to see that.
Suzette, I think you just found a topic on your next show, AI replacing humans on the job. Yes, that's a very interesting topic for me, because there's a lot of movement quietly and people are not paying attention. They're trying
And
to get
Suzette,
driverless trucks. They're trying to, all these men that make great money, and women, truck drivers, they're trying to get driverless trucks.
but not just the truck drivers, but all the people who service that field across the country.
Yes, imagine everything related to it. I agree with that, DL. All those people in related industries. It is going to come down the pipe for sure. Hey, the world class, good to see you. Russell says, DL, why are you hating on the liberal arts? Let's go. We need people who are thinkers and who are expressive in these arts.
Yes,
Proud
I
BA
love
in English here. Need to read in order to do anything else. Hello, thank you, Ross.
I'm not mad, love. I got all kind of books behind me. There's The Art of War right there. I got Capital right there. There's Barack Obama's book right there.
You say just don't ask nobody to pay for that?
Right. You don't have to. I have to pay. Who I got to pay to read those books? I paid Amazon. I could have got them for free. Yeah. But no, there is. I get there is a need for liberal arts. There really is. I'm not knocking liberal arts, but there should be caps. You should not allow someone to get to a liberal arts degree, to spend $300,000-$400,000 trying to get it. There should be caps. I mean, because you need to protect. Sometimes you got to protect people from themselves.
Well, that goes into a lot of these technical schools, for-profit colleges, all of that. There's so many parts of that have gotten, people in a lot of debt, right? Some of them are good, some of them are not so good. And unfortunately, they do target, or it has been said through congressional hearings and research, that many of them who have been shut down were targeting, the most disadvantaged, our military, and trying to get them into high debt, low return programs, which is also very sad. Hit the like button, y'all, if y'all are enjoying this conversation. I'm here with DL, who just came up. I dropped the link. Anybody's really welcome. We didn't schedule, but he just came up to share his opinion. I appreciate you, brother, and I appreciate the chat. Let me see. Work free status. Interesting. The world class. Okay, you understand what this means? Work free.
I think he's making his comment to when I was saying that if you were a descendant of slaves, you don't have you have to pay taxes,
Oh
no
yeah,
federal
yeah, yeah,
taxes.
yeah, 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 yeah,
So
yeah.
I mean, imagine that every dime you make, there's no taxes whatsoever, no state taxes, no federal taxes. If you were a descendant of slaves, every dime you make, you keep, and that would only be for maybe 4 generations. So it would be like my mom, me, my
Yeah,
daughter, and then my daughter's child.
yeah.
But think about the leaps and gains we would be able to do with that in
Yes.
just 4
If
generations.
again we had the financial literacy, because we saw some of the PPP foolishness. And I think some
Can't
people
help
have
all that.
postulated that that's a test run to see what would happen if they actually gave us reparations.
But
I'm not
here's the
sure I
thing, though. You
believe that.
still would have to earn the money. You still would have to go. It's not like they're giving you anything for free.
No, no,
It's
no. You
every
still would
dollar
have to
you
earn the
earn,
money
you
to get the
keep.
tax free. I get it.
Right. So if you want to make all your money and go buy Jordans and Air Force Ones, that's your business. I'm gonna be the guy you buy them from because I'm gonna buy that Jordan store.
Exactly. Point well taken. BY says, not going to happen, DL. White folks all of a sudden will start being mixed race.
Gotta
Lord
prove
of
it. DNA is
mercy,
an amazing
BY.
thing.
We'd have to, I know, because I'm like, we are mixed race people, especially in the States. The world class asks, what if it turned out that you are not a descendant of slaves? What if you were a descendant of POWs
POWs. Yeah, prisoners
who
of
were
war.
in? Oh yeah, prisoners of war who were in. Okay, yes, I watched this great documentary on I think it was on Greenwood District, and the Trail of Tears. They were talking about the Native Americans who were forced over into Oklahoma, etc., and how many slaves they owned. And say it was like 4,000 slaves came, and then how some were able to purchase them, purchase land that was, or purchase freedom, gain manumission, and then purchase land which was throwaway land. So after there was certain treaties, Native Americans got their land, and then there was land within the reservation that was like throwaway land, and Black folks just started buying it. I was watching it, excuse me, on Netflix, and I was just like, Lord, look at this, super interesting. I can't remember the name. Probably it's Greenwood. But yeah, it was super interesting to think about that. But I was like, you're gonna have mixed race people in all of that. People
Uh,
would
uh,
were.
Absolutely. There'll be some Jeffersons out there. People descendants from Thomas Jefferson know what he was doing.
Yes, of
You know what I
course.
mean? But
No,
but it's
all the
still
way
though.
through, all the way, every forefather. And I was watching this other thing, 60 Minutes on Sunday, talking about a man who was in, I believe it's North Carolina, bought I guess you would call it a plantation home, a historic home, so that his family, which is very large with extended cousins, could be together. And when he looked it up, it was their surname is related to like people that they went to school with. Duh. I'm like, y'all needed the white folks to tell you this. Like, this would make total sense to me. No disrespect, just saying, just in how American history has unfolded. Someone with your same last name who's white in your same county in rural like North Carolina, most likely you either work for them or you are also worked in quotations. You get what I'm saying? Were on their plantation, or you're actually a relative of theirs through interrelations, let's say. But yeah, he found out that one of his great, I think it was 2 great grandmas, worked for this guy who he went to school with and who he had bought the house from. It's very interesting. 60 Minutes was a great piece. Long story short, he was always curious as to where the people were buried. And then the white guy who had owned it for several years was like, "Oh no, there's the slave cemetery like in the backyard, covered with leaves, small headstones that were like hidden." It was such a powerful thing to know, like the people who had worked that land 6 and 7 generations ago, their descendants now own the property. And we're trying to get archaeologists and people, like it's like a living, like you could see the slave quarters that were very well preserved, and those buildings are not that frequently still in existence when you go to those type of plantation style homes. Anyway, it was so moving. It was so moving. I was like, Lord, look at the full circleness of our country, that their family once worked that land, and now their great grandson owns that land. And it was just very poignant. But yeah, interesting. Thank you, Roderick. Sorry, a little digression there. US, in all seriousness, the loan forgiveness is a symptom of a problem. Interesting. You shouldn't have to pay. This is where people have talked about, like, let's not blame the folks who are just involved in the system that exists. Pay 100K to be a teacher or $1 million to be a doctor. Is that the problem, Dio?
Your brother, that he's spot on. I agree 100% with that. It's all, again, it's all smoke and mirrors. This is what we're talking about. But the problem is, for-profit colleges are out of control. They're out of control, right? And and we look at this, corporate welfare system we have up in place, and you're seeing that right there with those tweets. You know what I mean? That's the problem. And we need to focus on the problem and quit getting distracted, by all these smoke and mirrors, and someone yells squirrel and everyone kind of looks over there. And meanwhile, they're running off with the bag, and I put that on us as a people. We do not get involved in the political process. I understand life is hard, but we got to do something because it is just running away. And Suzette can tell you all about it. She works in that field. She sees what,
Yeah.
you know how it works.
Yeah, you got to have a seat at the table. Oftentimes, I mean, primary elections just ended in Florida. We have general elections in several states coming up. Whether we're not paying attention, whether we don't feel like we should be paying attention, you have to. You have to, because to the victor goes the spoils. Whoever is in power making the rules, making the laws, is going to spend your money whether you know about it or not, whether you agree with them or not. That's why it is a pivotal part of American life. Sometimes I know it can be draining. Sometimes I know you feel like, oh, it's what should I say? They say two heads of the same coin. I don't know if that's the right saying, but that, is the better of two evils, or however you want to put it. But the fact is, the system is not going anywhere. And that if you're not involved in it, does not mean they're not determining where your money, your tax dollars that you pay when you buy something at the store, if you have a property that you pay every year, and other taxes that are collected on income and whatnot, the American government will collect taxes, right? And they are going to spend billions of our money, right? And if we're not paying attention, it's not going back to programs and to people that we think it should go to. So
Yeah.
this is an example. This is one that, again, the folks who elected Mr. Biden might, take some issue. Y'all support DL's channel. Great points, DL. I'm not going to stay on too much longer. If anyone else wants to come up, this is your last call. But I definitely want to hear what you have to say. Topic tonight is the loan forgiveness program. So DL, if you still had loans, you wouldn't apply for this?
I would now, because now that I'm retired, I would qualify. So yeah, I would. Why wouldn't I? Why would I leave the money out there? That
Okay,
just
I'm
doesn't
just
make
saying
any
the way
sense.
you were so strong with it. I was like, okay, he don't want
I
the
mean,
money.
if I thought this was going to actually happen, I mean, I would have been involved to get this to include those who've already paid those loans, to get a tax rebate at least. You should be able at least to write that money off that you paid way back when. You show us you had this loan, because they got the records. Yeah, I paid off this loan for whatever, and you should be able to write up to $10,000 of that or $20,000 of that off. I wouldn't stop with just. And then what are we going to do for my daughter? Is my daughter going to get to go run up $1 million worth of student loan debt and then get that forgiven to some extent? If that's the case, great. We can plan that. Okay, we can go ahead and run up $20,000 because we know the government's going to pay for it later. This is a terrible precedent.
So you're saying that will future generations now think that this is something that is politicians are going to be in favor of? So they're not really going to take care and say, I'm going to save my money. I'm going to actually just go and then pressure the politician to try to do forgiveness for a larger amount, because this only qualifies the people who, I think, up until, not the people in school now, or I think it's up to 2022 people. It's not for people past this day or past this year, excuse me. So I agree with you. There are going to be people screaming and shouting like, oh no, if you were, and they have the date, I'm sorry, I should have it, but say June 2022, for argument's sake, I don't know the exact date, if you had those loans up until that moment, yeah, you have a bunch of people that are coming right after who don't technically qualify. So I agree with you, but I think, again, my heart is a little bit disturbed by the hypocrisy the hypocrisy of those who have received all types of bailout from the government. And again, we can go back. Here's another one. Kevin Hearn tweeting out to recap in the last 2 weeks, the quote unquote party of the people has supercharged the IRS to go after working class Americans, raise their taxes, and force them to pay for other people's dang on college degrees. But again, Congressman Kevin Hearn, thank you, the White House Twitter account, go see for yourself, guys, remarked had over 1 million in PPP loans forgiven. So again, we got people who are making the rules, who are in fact benefiting from some form, and it's not a little bit, it's major bailout, now saying that in this regard that the Biden administration has overstepped their bounds and that we should not be giving money to everyday folks. Really, 43 million folks that fall into like the middle class don't need, quote unquote, or should not get, quote unquote, this type of forgiveness when they themselves, members of Congress in this instance, have gotten major loan forgiveness from the U.S. government. Not no 10,000, 1 million and upwards. And if you just joined, I went over some other ones. But yeah, I'm going to leave with some final thoughts. Let me get to the chat. Let's see. Welcome, y'all. If you're watching Team Replay, hit the like button. Doug says, I know some descendants of Jefferson and also descendants of Robert E. Lee. Not a surprise. That is a norm for our U.S. history. There was a very big, what should I say, mixing of races. Like people had children who were mixed race all the time. BY says, no, ain't no rebate. No, you can't get back your money. Here's all, you spent it, you paid it off. Ain't no rebate. Tough cookie. But do you agree with this? Will you guys be applying for this? I'm going to ask for DL's final thoughts in a second. Are you one of these folks who are like, oh, yes, thank you for canceling our debt, President Biden? This was one of your promises. May not have been what we expected in terms of the amount, but you did what you promised, which was reaching back and saying to people who are, they say, saddled with debt, people who are still trying to get ahead, people suffering from inflation, not able to do what they want to do with their lives, not being, what should I say, socially mobile, getting into better jobs, better homes, better things than their parents. A lot of people living now worse than their parents and having difficulty to just pay bills, quite frankly. Is this a wonderful bailout, or is this something that is cheating the system and not allowing people to take responsibility for what they took out in the first place? Is it hurting other taxpayers who don't have loans or who never went to college or who paid off their college tuition or their college debts? Or is it simply trying to even the playing field for people who are suffering with these large, crazy amounts of debt and who cannot seem to make ends meet because of all the other difficulties going on in our country? I don't know. What say you? DL, you'll get the final word. What are your thoughts? Is this a red herring? Is this foolishness? Bad precedent? Where are you going to end tonight?
I mean, I Biden paid for those votes. I mean, that's what got him in office. I ain't mad at him. That's what he did. It's a political move. When you asked me that question about taking money, right?
Mm-hmm.
I got out of the active army in 1994.
Mm-hmm.
And from 1994 until 2017, I didn't take advantage of any of my VA benefits. I just didn't. I felt like, yeah, I heard a little bit or whatever, but I'm a young man. I got a strong back. I'm just gonna go up, because in my mind I was like, well, I don't need it. I'm not gonna take it. So when I finally did, and the only reason I did take my benefits is because of what was going on with my personal life, with court, and and all that, dealing with the family court system. I was getting beat up hard, and it's like, well, I began to take that benefit, and I got to tell you, I was foolish. I could have been getting that benefit from 1994 until today, and I didn't. I didn't start until 2017. And you just think of all that money I left on the table because I thought I was being an honorable man and only taking what I would need, quote unquote, or whatever. I didn't want to take advantage of the system, quote unquote. But then you look at all these politicians that you just showed tonight. You look at all these people who are just clapping their hands and they're happy to go take this money. So yeah, you would be foolish not to take it especially if the government is throwing it out there, especially with all the money I've paid in taxes. Right, I've never been married. I've never caught any real tax breaks. I've paid a lot of money in taxes. So I think anyone out there who is eligible for this, you should take it. If you're eligible for any other program out there, you should take it. You know what I mean? There is no moral high ground anymore in this country. People aren't doing what's right. They're doing what's best for them. So that would be my last word on all this. Is it wrong? Absolutely. Is it fair? Nope. But you know what? It is what it is. And if we're not going to sit back and take control of our political system, well, at least you can reap the benefits when it does come your way. Are these just pennies? Yes, just pennies. Because you saw all the millions that our elected officials are getting.
100%, yeah.
You wonder how they go to D.C. broke and they come back. It's like they're the Templars from old. Like they're going off the crusade in the Middle East, and the Templars they're so poor they got to share a donkey, but then they come back billionaires. That's how it is when we send people to D.C. They go there. I'm going to work hard for you. They get there and they take full advantage and they come back multimillionaires. You know what I mean? Shout out Nancy Pelosi. Shout out Mitch McConnell and all the rest.
And all
the rest
get
of
rich
them.
up there. I want to clarify and make sure I understand your point. So you're saying when you could have, because you didn't feel like you really needed it, you didn't take benefits. But are you saying that you would have gone back and taken them? Or you're saying...
I'm saying I was wrong for not taking them, with that mindset. Having that mindset, and it's like Brother Doug saying in the chat, it's like it's different for you. You actually earned those benefits. I did. I was actually banged up. I mean, I hurt to this day.
Right.
But I was like, no, I'm fine. I'm not going to take handouts. But we see these elected officials, these people, they got their hands deep in the pockets of the American coffers. They don't mind snatching out a couple million and walking off, riding off into the sunset. I think I was foolish by not taking advantage of, especially in a situation where I actually did earn it. I was a paratrooper. I did get banged up. I did go on missions. I did go to war. You know what I mean? There are things that are wrong with me, but I was like, no, I'm gonna be a man, like Mike Martin. I'm gonna be all right. I'm a man. I'm gonna be all right. But I think I was foolish.
I'm admiring that, and I'm also like, wow, no, I agree with Doug, and I again, thank you for your service. That there's so many lessons in that. I'm like, we could go on a whole tangent, but I'm gonna go ahead and wrap up. Let me just read a few more of these comments. BY says, I'm telling everybody I know. Doug adds, thank you, DL, for your comments. Just like PPP loans, I'm not touching this forgiveness program. I just don't trust. And I see it biting the country's butt. Rosalind disagrees, says it's a blessing, as I discussed on my show. Go ahead, girl. Last week. Yes, Doug added, it's different for you. You actually earned those benefits. BY counters, people who have loans pay taxes too. Yes, Knights Templar, you like that analogy? But the teacher doing the school shooter drill with the 10-year-olds has loans and can't buy a house. Interesting. Point well taken, BY. Rose D, nice to see you. I'm tired of benefits I don't qualify for. Everybody who paid off their loan should get $10,000 back. I'm not mad, sis. This is this is the issue. A lot of people did what they had to do or were able to do what they had to do and paid the money. And now it's like, hold up. Why? I know. And others of us are like, yeah, thank you. Appreciate it. But yeah, there's a lot more that we're going to see. Maybe I'll do a follow-up show when there's a rollout. I definitely want you, if you're watching Team Replay, leave your comments. And I want to thank DL for coming up, brother, and blessing me with your opinion. This is the SuzetteSpeaks show. I hope you enjoyed it, right? So join me this Saturday, DL. DL, this show is for you. Men don't like makeup. Let's talk about it with special guest XO Natalie, brand new YouTuber on my show for the first time. Saturday, 12 noon. I may go live Thursday as well, but Saturday should be an interesting show. DL has a very strong opinion, don't you, DL? About
the title is Men Do Not Like Makeup, correct?
Yes, but she's a makeup girl, so we're going to talk about it.
I'll be there. I'll be there.
Subscribe to my main man, DL, on his podcast, Doing Work. Make sure you go over there, check him out. And if you are not subscribed to this channel, make sure you hit that subscribe button before you go. I hope you enjoyed today's conversation. Many more to come. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you.
You ready for your outro music, girl?
Go ahead, give it to me. Uh-oh. Thanks for watching. Thanks so much. I'll see you guys. Appreciate you watching. Hit the like button on your way out. Take care. Bye now.